This is about the kind of the deal that made Star Wars, or at least gave Lucas control of Star Wars. There's a lot been said about this deal over the years, but kind of the full context of it is sort of what makes it so interesting, other than it made Lucas like exceedingly rich, and is what inevitably let Disney end up buying it later and putting us into what Star Wars is now even. So Lucas was making Star Wars under Fox, and Al Ladd Jr. really believed in him. The board really didn't, even though Lucas, I think a lot of people forget American Graffiti, which he made before this, was Oscar nominated, was actually a significant hit, and he was kind of the heir apparent to Coppola, and Coppola was really big. Obviously, he's Francis Ford Coppola, he made The Godfather. So there was a lot of promise on him, and he wanted to make Star Wars. Now, a lot of directors, Michael Cimino with Heaven's Gate most famously, even Coppola himself with Apocalypse Now, Scorsese with New York, New York, were making these excessively budgeted films where they have full creative control and all these things. And most of them bombed, except for like Apocalypse Now. Lucas wanted to make Star Wars. That was his big auteur statement, which people sort of forget, but it really was. And so they weren't going to give him enough money, and he was trying to get more money, and he worked out a deal. And this deal gave him all the merchandise rights and sequel rights, which meant nothing to them, because there weren't a lot of sequels then. Why would a studio, even in 1977, give up merchandising rights? Well, it's interesting because at that exact studio, Fox, in 1967, they were making a film called Dr. Dolittle, which was a huge famous bomb, right as New Hollywood which was starting, which is interesting that this deal ends up affecting Star Wars, because Star Wars is at the opposite end of New Hollywood. It sort of kills New Hollywood, so it's a deal that Lucas got to prosper off of. Anyway, it's a circumstance that that they were very late on New Hollywood. But in the same year, Dr. Dolittle is this big, expensive, huge musical. It has Rex Harrison. It's going to bring back musicals because they've had success with things like Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, things like that. And they think, let's get Rex Harrison and make this Dr. Dolittle thing and merchandise the crap out of it, make a ton of money. This is the year of Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate and Jungle Book, and you have all this interesting stuff going on. And then you have a stale, boring studio musical. And let me tell you, it didn't go over well. It did get nominated for Best Picture, but a lot of people believe they were sort of paid off to do it, which not enough people talk about. It's distressing, but they made a ton of merchandise because this was going to be a huge hit, obviously. They made like over 300 products, and none of it did well. In fact, they ended up with $200 million worth of products that went unsold, and so 20th Century Fox was like, no more merchandise for anything. That sucked. The 300 projects that hit shelves were like Talking Dolls, a soundtrack, a cereal, dog food. There's this thing called Royal Shake. It was a pudding, and they had figurines with it. They had model kits. They had Mattel pull-out dolls. Put-out dolls? Put-out dolls? I don't, that sounds gross. A giraffe Jack-in-the-Box, a ukulele music grinder, probably a bunch of other crap I'll find on the internet later. They just had tons and tons of this stuff, and they didn't think, did anyone want Dr. Dolittle merchandise? And it turned out, no, they didn't, and no one even liked it. It was a huge disaster of a bomb. And because of that, Fox was like, absolutely, you can have the merchandising rights. If I even bring that up in the meeting, I will get totally yelled at. Despite the fact that Planet of the Apes, which is another Fox property, was selling like Mego toys and stuff, very sparingly. They kind of got more into that post Star Wars, but they were doing it at the time, but they kind of knew that was more of a cult thing. Planet of the Apes didn't become a huge thing other than the first one, and in that late in the 70s, Planet of the Apes was definitely a cult thing. So because of that, and because Lucas got all the sequel rights, every Star Wars film, Empire Strikes Back to Revenge of the Sith, were independently financed by George Lucas. He either got bank loans or paid for it with all the money he made off merchandising. Because of that, he could go to Kenner and make the toys exactly how he wanted. He ended up changing the toy industry because of that as well. Was able to do the comic books the way he wanted, so he's able to help Marvel Comics also. The ramifications of this deal are insane. It literally changed modern entertainment because 20th Century Fox, who no one knows who the executive is exactly. Many think it's Alan Ladd Jr. because he was very pro-George Lucas in this property happening, and thank God he was. But they ended up just being a distributor. They ended up, not making as much off the other ones because they got semi-cut of the merchandise, but not a lot. Especially the prequels, they made like nothing off of the merchandise. Lucasfilm made all of it. I mean, the toy companies made some. But yeah, this deal had massive ramifications. And because, no one talks about it. Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace are independent films just distributed through Fox. But independent film is more of a representation of basically art house film. and not actually what independent film is, which is just a financing term, to be honest with you. But this deal literally changed everything, and it's all because as Hollywood was shifting into New Hollywood, they made an epic mistake, which then helped start the new face of Hollywood directly after New Hollywood, which Star Wars then killed. So it's kind of an interesting kind of beginning and end to those eras, kind of help this happen and help Star Wars happen and help the blockbuster really come and take shape and become what it was because of the failure of Dr. Dolittle and the business smarts of George Lucas. But I think he just really did that to get more money for Star Wars. Even he thought the cheaper sequel would be Splinter of the Mind's Eye and all that. He didn't think it would be Empire Strikes Back. No one knew what it was going to be, but it kind of blossomed from there, and financially and deal-wise he was set up to do it and become who he was. That is the deal that literally made Star Wars happen and changed all of entertainment, basically.